Hi. It's just about coming up to my first 6 months at Axol Bioscience. And here's 8 things I've learned about human iPSCs. So 6 months in, and it's probably a good time to stop, take a moment and reflect on my learnings so far. I found myself asking some key questions. What have I learned about the human iPSC world? Why is all of this so important? Where could it go? For the right level of support, what support is needed? And with each of these days, new lessons, opportunities, conversations, new learnings, lots to learn. And I've attempted to condense my thoughts into kind of 8 reflections on where we are so far. So firstly, the numbers that we're dealing with in this market space are huge. I've been reading lots about neurodegenerative disease, a lot of market research posts, a lot of kind of clinical backgrounds, and I think even a cursory glance at disease incidence or clinical trial costs or success and failure rates or demographic trends has revealed, it's a lot of big numbers. So here's a snapshot of numbers. Okay, in the UK, 34.5 million people know someone who has been diagnosed with some form of dementia. I do. I'm sure you do. It's about half the entire population knows somebody who's been informed by dementia and are so kind of affected by them. In the US, about 1 in 9 people aged 65 or older have Alzheimer's. 1 in 9 is 10%. 7%. There's a study in 2022, Parkinson's Foundation, reveals that nearly 90,000 people are diagnosed with Parkinson's disease every year in the US. And this represents a steep 50% increase from the previous estimated rate of 60,000 diagnoses annually. Huge. Alzheimer's disease affects 24 million people worldwide, and dementia about 55 million. So the clinical scope of this is huge. Let's look at some more numbers. Drug discovery. Famous factoid, 1 in 10 drug candidates, only 1 in 10 drug candidates successfully pass a clinical trial through to regulatory approval. Another interesting one I heard was that in the UK, Alzheimer's has a 25% misdiagnosis rate. There's a lot of complexity behind that into kind of classifications and methods. But 25% of Alzheimer's is misdiagnosed clinically in the UK. Here's another one. In an analysis of drug development costs for 98 companies over a decade, the average cost per drug was £350 million to develop a single drug company. As from single drug companies, 350 million. But for companies that have approved between 8 and 13 drugs over 10 years of big companies, cost of drugs went as high as $5.5 billion. So, big clinical need, massive costs, and yet effective treatments for Parkinson's, none. Alzheimer's, none. Dementia, none. And so with all these numbers, you can't help but be reminded about the real and urgent demand to push forward, to find new tools, to both de-risk the kind of operational financial aspects of drug discovery, reduce time costs, and overall increase success to find better human disease models. Because beneath all these statistics lie real people. There's people with wives and husbands and children and friends and colleagues, and we all live in societies. And with these scale of disease, it affects everything that we do. And with aging populations and changes in lifestyle and diet, neurodegenerative diseases are inevitably going to affect us all in some way, either directly or indirectly. It's sobering stuff. Recently, I had the pleasure of speaking to Stephen Brannan, who's a lay member of courts at Edinburgh Napier University. And he's also a person with Parkinson's. And fascinating story, very interesting to talk to him, and he told us in no uncertain terms to hurry up in terms of getting adequate treatments for Parkinson's, for people with Parkinson's, because there is currently no cure, but he said that science and ingenuity gave him hope. Point 2. We need better human disease models if we're going to get through this better. So, in part, back in the days when I did my PhD was focused on understanding the relevance and the application of a knockout mouse model. And this was for gene therapy trials. And there's a lot of bench society seems to be this way. You know, we've developed a model, but what does it tell us about the human condition is the classic bench to clinic conundrum, the translational gap that we must strive to close. And even now, 25 years after I finished my PhD, there's always questions. This continues the question. The pursuits of well-characterized, useful models. You know, what is a relevant model? What does it tell you? And it seems ever more pertinent in this day and age. And classical neurodegenerative models, you know, let's be clear, they've added so much to our understanding, but there's still huge opportunities to improve and a need to improve. And remember, mice don't get Alzheimer's. In fact, mice don't get a lot of things. And to quote Professor Viner, it's a great quote about vaccines, but he always says mice lie and monkeys exaggerate. I do like that. But it's really asking, okay, we understand the limitations of models, but what does a better model look like? Well, from what I've been working with the last 6 months, certainly more scalable, more reproducible, more manageable, more relevant, physiologically relevant. And so the need for these better models, surrogate models, are needed to expand our understanding of drug action and behavior and safety. And where are we going to find these? It was interesting, in December of 2022, the signing of the FDA Modernization Act 2.0, and the clear challenge was put to drug discovery by the regulator. Along the lines of, well, if you think you can do better than animal models, go for it. If you think cell assays or artificial intelligence is going to help, let's explore that together. And so the gauntlet was laid down to kind of technology developers and bench scientists and regulators, all of us alike, to explore new model methods. And so to the area of human-induced pluripotent stem cells, iPSCs, that I work in now, there's something so inherently powerful about human iPSCs. The fact that the cells originate from a blood donation or skin sample from a real and generous and consenting person, that must be important. They come from a human. And when I sit in on meetings and I see colleagues showing customers or discussing like electrophysiology results, and you can get a patient line working in a cell culture dish and a control line, and you see these different firing patterns or different electrical responses and how they respond differently to compounds. It's really compelling, powerful stuff to point towards the relevance of these models. And then when you add in increasing complexity beyond a single cell type in a dish to co and tri culture models, then 3D organoids, scaffolds, organ-on-a-chip devices, and other complex structures, it all points towards the real kind of development of credible, physiologically relevant models in cell culture. So the need is there, and the human iPSC-based models look very promising and exciting. Number 3, cell biology is technically challenging, and iPSCs even more so. So, confession, I'm more of a molecular biologist than a cell biologist, let's put it that way. I can connect more with the kind of digital aspect of PCR reactions and genomics than with the fine art of administering transcription factors on a Sunday morning, large volume pipetting, very expensive cell culture. It's an area which I haven't worked in the bench. I did a little bit. Anyway. So, but seeing my colleagues working in the labs and listening to the meetings, you're immediately struck by the technical complexity and practical challenges in this corner of science. It's tough stuff. And the new era of stem cells, iPSCs, kind of emerged in 2006 with the Yamanaka paper. So, probably 17 years on, I listened to my technical colleagues talk about the journey so far, what's been learned, and the numerous hurdles, but still difficult, demanding, technically complex area. And in our service work, the service work that Axol provides to clients, it's been a real eye-opener to see how much time and effort our team puts into the kind of, the front end, the kind of characterizations that go into the project, and all throughout in the back end quality, the characterization of kind of endpoints and relevance, and the quality control that's built around this can be easily 3/4 of the entire project. And much of this investment into quality control has its origins in the lab's real and sometimes here quite painful experience, where they've perhaps taken other lines or third-party components that were supposedly fine or quality, but in reality were far from it. And the amount of work to try and kind of bring these components into a quality process has led to an awful lot of time wasting, head scratching, and delays for everyone involved. So building the quality into this has been hard learned and kind of fiercely maintained in the work that Axol does. So Axol isn't alone in promoting outsourced service projects for iPSCs. There's in every market around the world there's competition for anything. But I think we have, but I think from the feelings that we have when we are involved in discussions, maybe with new clients, when we hear about some of the prices and the kind of methods and the speeds that other people promote, is it kind of our response ranges from disbelief to outright concern around these kind of super fast service jobs. And there was a discussion last week where somebody said, well, we actually spend more in cell culture media than apparently someone else is spending. And the only conclusion we can come to, and when we hear, is, guess what? Cheap often means cheap. And I think it's a real credit to both the Axol scientists and to our clients who have a shared value in, look, this is complicated, this is tricky, let's do it once and do it right. So many new clients coming to Axol will give us a pilot project to work with. Makes perfect sense. Test us out, test out the whole outsourcing thing. And it's a great opportunity for us to demonstrate our attention to detail. And we know from our figures, our sales number, the very high follow-on rate of work. So guess what? We're going to stick with prioritizing quality. Stem cells are the intel inside, or somebody said, the flour that make the bread. So what does all that mean? Well, stem cells aren't used on their own. They're in a context of a platform. When we talk to Big Pharma, what do Big Pharma want of stem cells? Well, they want reproducible models, consistency, relevancy, all kind of able to roll out at scale. And where iPSCs fit into this kind of model is to look for partners, so microfluidics partners, MPS, organ on chip. So it's a range of terminology, and they do mean different things. But these plastic platforms are the basis for high quality, physiologically relevant models that can be rolled out at scale. And to fuel these platforms, they need high quality, consistent iPSCs. So whatever analogy you want to pick, Intel or flour in the bread, if you're going to reach scale, and if this market is going to reach scale, and if the users are going to be able to apply iPSCs to scale, it's going to have to be through a productive partnership between iPSC manufacturers, platform providers, and bench scientists. And as an example, our connection with Netri and many other platform suppliers is important to our business and ultimately the route to realising the potential of iPSC-based models. So number 5, here's something I learned. We're going to need to collaborate a lot. So how are we going to see the bigger utilisation of human iPSC models? Number 1 on the list must be collaboration. If we want to fulfil the full potential of this industry, we need a high level of transparency and openness, with collaborating with everyone in the chain, from scientists like those at the Crick Institute who developed the new iPSC methodologies around cardiomyocytes, to quality suppliers of excellent reagents and media, to the iPSC manufacturers, platform providers, right through to those in charge of shipping and logistics and the users. Full end-to-end discussions and open communication is absolutely pivotal. And in my 6 months with Axol so far, I've seen the importance of shared values numerous times. We value collaboration and transparency, and we enjoy working with others who share these values. We also need to share skills and experience to maximise this potential and keep the whole thing building. And we have a great culture of skills sharing with our staff, supporting more junior scientists with their kind of personal developmental plans, but also to support customers and other scientists in the community with the complexities of iPSCs. And we've been running really successful tech help clinics online, and we look forward to inviting scientists to our labs to learn co-culture techniques, for instance. And we're very aware that it's by sharing our experience that we're all going to be able to kind of flourish in this area. Number 6, getting ahead of the time. We can use stem cells to reflect a wider population in drug discovery. So I've written elsewhere that drug discovery does not go anywhere near reflecting gender diversity and ethnic diversity in clinical trials. It's well documented as a poor state of affairs. So what if we could access large banks of human iPSCs from diverse populations and use them at scale for drug discovery and patient stratification? That's the idea that greatly excites me. It's in the context of patient stratification. And the argument is that many clinical trials fail because they don't have the right people in them. You haven't picked the right people to make this a success. So what if you could take 100 sporadic Alzheimer's cases plus 100 control cases? We're talking about blood donations, making iPSCs, getting onto a cell culture tradition, co-culture, and provide a cohort scale electrophysiological response analysis to drug treatments. So at scale, iPSC derived co-culture. You could screen drugs against large scale screens from diverse populations, and that would be really powerful. Number 7, outsourcing project work is all about trust. What does it mean to outsource your scientific work to a third-party service company, especially when it's complicated? So that's what our customers do. That's what our customers choose to do when they make a decision to trust Axol. And when I speak to potential clients about our Axol services, I always make a point to ask them, why are we having this conversation? Why are you thinking about outsourcing your work? And there's a wide variety of answers. Some companies are completely virtual pharma. They don't have any labs. Some are just too busy and need support. Others do not have cell culture facilities or at a certain stage or specific staffing expertise to take on the challenge confidently. Most just want their work done quickly and effectively in a cost-effective way, and that's why they would trust Axol to deliver that. Others recognise that this is just technically complicated, and the skill of our staff who do this day in, day out are the right people to do it. I heard of a customer recently saying that they recognised that the project was going to be very technically ambitious, but if anyone was going to get it right, it was going to be us. So in all honesty, it's quite humbling. Our customers are bench scientists doing important research to develop drugs and medicine, and they're looking to put faith in our scientists to support their endeavours. It's quite interesting, due to the confidentiality that surrounds much of the work that we do, we often don't know what the compounds are or what they're being used for, or sometimes even the purpose of a project, but it's exciting to think that we're contributing towards a treatment that perhaps I might need in the future. It's also nice to see the number of repeat projects that we do, because this speaks directly to customer satisfaction, and it's very enjoyable to sit in meetings where you clearly see the kind of Axol scientists and the client scientists building kind of strong relationships, sharing information, collaborating, openly discussing the best ways forward. And lastly, eighth thing I've learned, maybe I always knew this. I mean, work is all about people. So the pleasure of any job is about the people you interact with. And who you work with, how the team is created, how a company is created, is not by accident, and they're formed deliberately by selection and process and style and maybe a bit of history. And I can honestly say that Axol is the first place I've ever worked where the values and behaviours that you see on every company website, but Axol's values and behaviours are truly part of the foundations of the company, and it's not used without cliche. And the 6 foundational pillars at Axol, form the bedrock, but really on an active basis, they drive our behaviours and how we operate on a daily basis. And our CEO, Liam, reminds us of this every day in a very positive sense. And so these pillars, the values and behaviours, they drive and demand collaboration, performance, they encourage self-reflection, continual improvement, in an environment that's positive and energizing. And so there we go. And this is exactly the environment required, I think, to push forward the iPSC space into drug discovery. And feeling optimistic. So there we go, 6 months in. I can safely say that I'm excited about what lies ahead as we continue to build better human disease models. Thank you.